nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very much. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Okay. Commissioner Webster, is she absent?
Excuse.
Excused. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Holzhausen?
Here.
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Garber?
Here.
Commissioner Marks?
Here.
Commissioner Plowman?
Here.
And Chairman Broder.
Here.
All right, at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the committee meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Along with the motion, Chairman Broder with the support. Questions, discussion, additions, anything? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Now we'll move into our public comment section. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address this committee? Okay, hearing none, let's move right into our special presentation. And item A, Jail Garden Grant Update. Former Commissioner Emeritus
Retired.
Dan McCloskey.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Please use your gavel discretion today.
Wait a minute, where is it? Yeah,
So, thank you for letting me come talk to you guys tonight. I just kind of wanted to give you an update about the jail garden in general, but then also talk about the grant that was approved through you guys. So I know there's been a lot of comments out on social media sites and Facebook and everything else about some negativity about the jail garden. I know most of you have been there, have toured it, or have talked to me about it. We have all positive things to report. So I just kind of want to set the record, put some numbers out there, kind of talk about where we've been, where we are right now, and potentially what the future is. And if you want to interrupt me and ask questions as we go, that's fine. So we started in 2018. We had a quarter of an acre. We produced about 13,000 pounds. Cindy was very instrumental that summer. Excuse me, Commissioner Carver.
Thank you.
Was very instrumental that summer. We expanded the next year to about 2.5 acres. We had a little over 60,000 pounds. 2020, we went down to 50,000 pounds, but we had about 3.5 acres. This last year we were over 5 acres and we produced over 100,000 pounds. Originally the jail garden started, the idea was to grow stuff throughout the summer and supplement the food that was being prepared in the jail kitchen. We quickly found out, due to staff, due to the size of the kitchen, it wasn't room, it wasn't the capacity, there wasn't the human resources to produce it, and the harvest schedules never seemed to line up correctly with work schedules and inmate populations. So over this last 4 years, we've kind of gone down. Not as much has gone into the jail kitchen, but more has gone to local pantries and other institutional kitchens that we have here in the area. Part of that's because of COVID. Part of it is fewer inmates in the jail, fewer inmates to process it, fewer staff to help. And then recently there's been a change with how the jail kitchen is being operated. That being said, we were still putting stuff for the last 4 seasons. We have put stuff through the jail kitchen, but more and more of it is going out to the community. We deliver stuff to 4 counties: Genesee, Shiawassee, Clinton, and Ingham County. Over 30 fixed. When I say fixed pantries, like a church pantry or the kitchen maybe at Pleasant View, or maybe the kitchen at Salvation Army or SCOA or Homeless Angels. So over 30 fixed locations that have institutional kitchens or food pantry distribution. There are other events that happen. Sometimes they're once every couple weeks, sometimes they're once a summer, like Project Connect. We always have produce there. When the YMCA, when Laura Archer is coordinating with Greater Lansing Food Bank and the semi-loads are coming out to the different communities, we show up for produce at those events. So the actual locations is going to be way over 30, but the actual physical locations is at 30. Some of the highlights, obviously last year and this year we're under the MDARD grant, the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Specialty Crop Block Grant that promotes It's a promotion to increase vegetable production and consumption in Michigan. That was a $125,000 grant that was awarded last year to date. And you have to understand, you're going to hear this number and you're like, why is it so low? The grant could have started in October. We started it in January, so that was 3 months that we did not operate. And the number I'm going to give is up through October of last fall, and obviously we are 4 or 5 months past that now. But we have been reimbursed, and that this is up to October 1st of last year, $46,174.88. That included payroll for myself, for interns, some equipment and supplies. We've had several not audits, but compliance dates, guidelines, reports we've had to hand in. Everything is fine with that. Working on the book, that's the main objective of the grant, is produce this book. That's the model that explains how to build a model jail garden. That's going to be distributed obviously to Michigan sheriffs and then across the country. It's not just going to be about production, but it's going to be about distribution. It's going to be about relationships with commissioners, with other county departments, other partners out in the community. So this next year coming up, this next growing season, we'll have a small greenhouse erected. We will have a deer fence erected. We're going to start doing more cover crops and rotations. We'll have a pollinator project. It'll be very similar to the one that my son and I worked on out at Henderson Park when we did the county park revitalization. What else here? Can't even read my writing. We'll have an open house like we did a couple summers ago. We have the leadership meeting, the county leadership meeting in August, I believe, is going to be held out there. We're going to have a breakfast. So other things going on, I'm applying for another grant, another 2-year grant, similar to the one we're under right now through MDARD. That focuses on farm to institution and issues with COVID-19, infrastructure, produce supply issues. So I'm going to put in 2 applications. The first one's going to be for processing. I'll be working with another group here in the county. We'll be located a kitchen. It's already a licensed kitchen, a commercial kitchen, where we'll process vegetables and freeze them so they can be distributed year round. And the other one is going to be a smaller grant, but that's going to be for microgreens, hydroponics, and kind of indoor-outdoor growing of that stuff, with the idea of turning the jail garden into truly a year-round program. So what else here? I applied for a USDA high tunnel, a hoop tunnel, big greenhouse that you could drive a tractor through, plant stuff. But as a county, we are ineligible. I am going to, my plan was to use the money that the USDA was going to put up and come to you guys and ask for ARRA funds. But we were ineligible because we're a county government. I'm still going to try to do that, so I may be back asking for funds, but it would not be smart of me to come and say, I'd like you to fund X amount. I will go out and find 3 or 4 other partners who are willing to put up some money. So if I come to you, it would kind of be like a matching grant. There are 3 areas that we continue to struggle with the jail garden. 1 is labor, 2 is deer, and 3 is distribution. With the labor, originally we started using just inmates. We have increased that. We use juvenile probationers. Sarah Edwards has been wonderful to work with. We use them. We use participants in our specialty courts, from Judge Stewart's courts, drug court, mental health court. We have consumers from community health who started in the fall and have been working this winter actually with me on some hydroponic stuff. And we also have other individuals, not just from this county, but from Genesee County, Oakland County, that may have gotten in trouble with the judicial system, and they're looking for community service. So when you see people out there, if they don't have a yellow jumpsuit on, sometimes it's hard to figure out who's there or why they're there, but there's labor from all over. Never enough labor, obviously with COVID, it's been harder and harder. We've had a huge problem with deer and deer crop damage, but Through the 1033 program, we have some fencing, and that'll be installed here probably in about a month and a half. The last one's the distribution. It seems I spend, and the interns, seem to spend more time distributing than actually farming. But I've been working on that here locally, and there's some individuals, some groups that have box trucks, box vans, and some volunteers, and that might change a little bit, where we may actually have, instead of us going out distributing everything, a truck or two coming to the actual jail garden, being loaded, and then taking stuff away. Kind of, the costs, obviously we have this grant, and it sounds like a big grant, but when you add in the salaries and the interns and the equipment, and some supplies, it really is, the money goes extremely fast. There isn't that much, but the county has not, I believe in the last year or two, spent, if anything, not very much. A lot of stuff gets donated, our seeds, our plants. We have a lot of local nurseries, greenhouses, businesses that have donated stuff. So the future, I talked about this a little bit. Obviously, there's always going to be expansion, transitioning to kind of a year-round. Going to get a greenhouse, hopefully get a high tunnel, a high hoop house. Shifting more towards processing, and we're also going to be working with. There's a uptick in community gardens that's kind of being pushed by the United Way of Genesee and Shiawassee County, the Greater Lansing Food Bank, and the YMCA. We may be collaborating a little bit with them in that some of the plants we start may actually be started by inmates in our greenhouse and then distributed out to some of the community gardens. And then some of the varieties and stuff that's going to be grown would be the same that we grow in the jail garden, would be in the community gardens. So when it all gets harvested, it all gets picked and it gets distributed someplace. Just to give you an example, you may have squash that's come from two different places, but it's the same variety. It's going to have the same disease resistance. It's going to have the same storage capability. And also there's potential for a small orchard down the road. So, any questions? Oh, I need one more thing. I know you guys have seen this in the office, but we became meat verified. This is through Michigan Department of Agriculture and our local Water and Soil Conservation District. There's many areas where you can be verified in. We've been verified in farmstead systems, and I'll have the cropping systems part probably within a couple months into early summer. A lot of record keeping, inspections, where we keep fertilizer, where we keep fuel, where we keep chemicals, how much water is irrigated, when stuff's planted, that kind of stuff. I have a little book, a little handbook that that gets filled out. So I know you've probably seen these around the county. A lot of farms have these. So I'll be getting with Tim. Is Tim in here? I'll be getting with Tim when the weather breaks, and somehow we'll get this mounted up front. So like I said, we have farmstead, and we'll be getting the cropping system one shortly here this summer. So, any questions?
Yes.
Just in general, Dan, what would you say is your biggest challenge with the program, and what would you say is your biggest success?
Obviously, the biggest success is we're able to. We have free labor. We have free land. We have free seeds, plants, all the stuff that's donated. We are able to produce food to feed the local population, which I've been told over 30% of our population in Shiawassee County frequents some, if not all, the pantries that we take stuff to. So we're helping to feed 30% of the county at very, very minimal cost, very, very low carbon footprint. Very beneficial to the participants. Whether it's rehabilitation or it's skills they're learning. Obviously, that's win-win. The worst part, the biggest struggle is the negative media that's out there. Individuals that are using the jail garden for political purposes to tear down commissioners, other elected officials, or the county. That there's some boogeyman and there's some conspiracy going on down at the jail garden, which clearly there isn't, but yeah, that's biggest success, biggest failure.
All of your workers, whether they're from the jail or the youth program, are they all voluntary? No one's required to work in the
No,
park, are they?
no, so whether, if you're an inmate, it's your decision if you want to become a trustee. And trustees can do different, they can wash cars, they can work in the kitchen, they can work in the jail garden. Obviously, when you work there, you know, you get, the cost gets taken off for your housing, but you don't have to work there. I've never had anyone who felt that they were, like it was compulsory work, you know. There's been some hot days where some have complained, but most inmates, whether when they were living down there at work lease or whether they're transported now down there, love to be outside working in the garden. Same thing with juvenile probationers. And actually some of the juvenile probationers got to work extra hours to reduce their court costs and fines. And they didn't have to do that, but they did that. A lot of the juvenile probationers love working in the garden. So, yeah.
Do you have anybody who's working there post-sentencing as part of a community service arrangement?
Yes, yes. I have, occasionally they'll be out of our county, but I'll get these random phone calls, and I don't know how or why, but somebody who, you know, maybe they live here, but they got in trouble in Oakland County, or they got in trouble in Genesee County, and they have so many hours. And so I work with, I get, double check, I get hold of the court, talk to their agent, find out for sure, you know, what's required, if this is gonna be acceptable or not. But yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment to kind of expand on Greg's question and what Dan said. So Dan, when you said it's a win-win, can you just give us maybe some examples, and I have one, you know, right on the top of my head, of the empowerment that people feel when they're able to feed other people. You know, we give these fresh vegetables to people that are hungry and in need, but the people that are actually growing the food, it's such a great feeling for them to be able to give back and know. And I'm thinking of the one individual that spent the bulk of his summer incarcerated working in the jail garden, and when it came time for him to leave, not that he didn't want to go, but he was literally working with other inmates to make sure that the work got done when he left, because he felt such an ownership of that process that I really believe it was life-changing for him.
So you see this a lot. It starts to show up a little bit with the juvenile probationers, but you see this a lot with the inmates. Like Commissioner Garber was talking about, these are some individuals, they've never had ownership in a project or in something they were doing. They've never been successful. They've never been appreciated. They've never been thanked. They've never been complimented. So they do take ownership. Whether it's a certain crop like tomatoes, which we're talking about our friend from Flint, from Genesee County. Nobody touched the tomatoes while he was there. Now he was worried when he was leaving who was going to take care of the tomatoes, but yeah, they do develop a sense of ownership. It's interesting. I've had inmates who grew up, their families visited food pantries here in the county, and then all of a sudden now they're growing food, they're delivering it at food pantries, and their mom is there, their siblings are there, maybe their spouses, their kids, nephews, nieces. So it kind of like comes full circle. So they have a better understanding of where this food comes from, and I mean, it's also brought awareness, because there's been inmates who have worked in the jail garden who, once they get out, know that these facilities, these places, programs are available. So it's kind of interesting, because the one summer there was a peak of individuals are signing up for food at different places. And it didn't take me long to figure out, yeah, it's because the inmates are telling their parents or their spouse or their, whoever, hey, this food's available, we're growing this food. We've even had families where, let's say the father is in jail and he usually hunted or fished or grew his garden, but couldn't do that, he was incarcerated. So we've arranged for the families to come and get boxes, not every day, not every week, but Yeah, so it's, I mean, they have a fuller, a greater understanding of the whole food distribution, food insecurity here in the county. And you know, knock on wood, I had one inmate who was only there for a couple weeks and then he was out. And then I had him a second summer. He was there the whole summer. He has not been back. That was 3 years ago. He's doing very well. We had one inmate who's been back, an older gentleman who's been back a couple times, but for the amount of people that we're running, the amount of inmates we're running through, and I don't have any scientific data, and I can't statistically say that recidivism is being reduced because of the jail garden, but it's interesting, a lot of these folks we don't see back, whether they don't want to come back in the hot sun and work, or they've realized that, you know, there's more to life and they're not gonna sit in jail. They're gonna go out and do stuff. And we've had, Commissioner Garber and I have had reports, we've gotten emails, we get phone calls, we run into individuals around businesses and restaurants and stuff that they've gotten out, they've gone home, family has a garden now, everything's going well, so it's a good sign.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks for being here.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move into item B, second presentation from the Humane Society.
Hello. My name is Holly Giles. I am the Executive Director at the Shiawassee County Humane Society. This is Carrie Beretta. She is the President of our Board of Directors, and we are here to ask for you all to consider supporting a millage for a shelter renovation and expansion. The Shiawassee Humane Society was incorporated in 1954 and was originally run by a group of volunteers out of their homes. Our current shelter was built in 1977, so we are a private nonprofit organization. We also hold the contract for Shiawassee County Animal Control, so we house and care for the strays for our county, and also any cruelty and neglect cases that come through animal control. So we provide a pet food bank twice a month to people in need, families in need for their pets. We would like to be able to expand that as well. We're talking to Laura from the YMCA about partnering with them in March to provide some pet food and supplies at their human food bank. So we're kind of out in the country, and so it's not always easy for people to get out to us to get the supplies that they need. We do receive usually 1 to 2 pallets of pet food a month through the Greater Lansing Food Bank, and that's typically around 600 pounds. We always give out that full amount and usually supplement that with another 200 to 300 pounds from our shelter stock. So the need is obviously there. We also try to hand out extra collars and leashes, toys, treats, whatever we have extra on hand on those 2 days a month. So as I said, our current shelter was built in 1977, and animal sheltering has obviously changed a lot since then. Back in 1977, we did not ever house sick animals, so if an animal was sick, it got euthanized to keep the rest of the pets from getting sick. So we don't have any spaces that were built to isolate sick animals from the rest of the animal population, or B, any spaces that are of a decent square footage living area for animals that are with us for any length of time. So back then, most animals did not sit in a shelter if they were not, reclaimed by an owner or adopted within a week or so. They were euthanized to make room for the animals that were coming in. So we have 16 adoptable dog kennels. We have 12 kennels for animal control dogs, and then we have 12 kennels for cats. So we have a very small, limited space. We help between 500 and 600 animals a year, and our waiting list in the summer when we're busy is over 500 animals waiting for space from their owners to be surrendered and come in. So we have a very, very small, outdated shelter. There are approximately 16,600 pet-owning households in Shiawassee County, and if you do the math, that equates to over 26,000 owned dogs and over 29,000 owned cats. And that is not taking into consideration the thousands of community cats that are out there, the feral cats, the cats that live in neighborhoods that really don't have owners. So the need is very big, and we definitely need a bigger, newer space. Our current space, as I said, is very old. Our drainage system in our dog kennels, we have been repairing and limping along for several years. We are inspected every year by MDARD, so we have to pass an inspection with the State Department of Agriculture every year to maintain our shelter license. Every year the list of repairs we need to make gets longer, and as I said, our drain system, which is our biggest concern, that's $25,000 or $30,000 to replace probably, and that is going to need to be done sooner rather than later. So we have outgrown the space that we're in, especially now that we're housing animal control pets, and we're holding animals longer. We have animals that have been with us for a year, sometimes 2 years before they get adopted. So we do not place time or space limits on our animals, and you can never build a shelter that's big enough for the entire need. But I think that we could definitely do a better job of meeting the need that's there for the people that own pets in our community. We also don't have any medical space in our shelter, so we rely on our community veterinarians to provide vet care, spay neuter surgery, all of those things that our animals need before they can go home. And if any of you own pets and have tried to get into the vet since the pandemic started, it's a long wait, and we're waiting those same amounts of time. So we have animals that are sitting with us for 2, 3, 4 weeks just waiting for vet care. So it's a very inefficient way to operate, I would say. Does anybody have questions about any of that?
Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let's jump into our committee's motions reports. We'll start off with Chairman Plowman of the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to adopt the contract between Shiawassee County Probate Court, the Probate Court, Circuit Court Family Division Employees Association, TPOAM, Technical Professional and Office Workers Association, and Shiawassee County.
Okay, item A has been moved
Support.
and now supported. Open for questioning or discussions. All right, hearing none, all in favor of moving item A forward to a final vote tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the letter of agreement with POLC.
Support.
Motion and a support for item B, approval of agreement with PLC. Questions or discussion regarding this item? Hearing none. All in favor of moving item B forward onto a final vote tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Aye. That motion will carry.
And yesterday's C was just a discussion as to MSU extensions. Yep, discussion, and I think that's at the end. So anyway, we'll cross that one. I need a motion to refill the position of drain maintenance supervisor not to exceed grade 3, step 3.
Support.
All right. To clarify, you moved that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So it has been moved and supported. Questions? Drain office was here yesterday, just to refill.
Yeah, we had, this man started working for us last year, and he took a job at the road commission because they were paying more money. He's a heavy equipment operator, so.
Understood. All right. In that case, all in favor of moving item D forward on to a final vote tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It will move forward.
I move to purchase a side-by-side from Hanson in an amount not to exceed $14,800, and the cost to be allocated equally between buildings and grounds, the health department, and the drain department.
Support.
Item E moved and supported. Questioning, discussion. Yes.
I have some problems with this one. Mostly, actually agreeing with you, Commissioner Marks, that we've got something here. It's a fairly significant amount of money that was not budgeted. It's not an emergency. And at a time when we're, at least I am preaching great fiscal restraint. I know that the health department has its own, basically its own monies, pretty much with its budget, we get a huge bargain there. Most of that comes from the state. Buildings and grounds, though, definitely does come out of our budget. This wasn't specifically budgeted for, and I might be wrong, but I would think that replacement of equipment or buying new equipment is something that should come into a yearly budget. Like I said, this isn't an emergency. It's not like something is broken down or blown up, and we just have to replace this piece of equipment. It's a want to have, maybe a good thing to throw in a budget next year. And then with the drain department, I'm also, is anybody from drain?
So I looked that up, that would come out of his drain, not the revolving fund that you put $300,000 in, but his equipment revolving fund, which is where this fuel comes from and some of his other purchases.
Okay, so he has the money that does not come out of that $300,000, because that one bothered me some too, that we put $300,000 into a fund that theoretically should never become fully depleted.
Yeah. These are different funds though, I did
Different
verify
funds,
that with him
okay.
today.
So, anyway, I'm a little uncomfortable with this one. And I don't know if anyone else is or not, or if they are, maybe we have some questions and we table it till next month, or if everyone else is fine with it, I guess we're good. So,
I think those are good questions, Craig. And I appreciate your clarification on it.
Other discussion?
I agree. I'd like to know what line item it comes out of for buildings and grounds.
It would be their general equipment budget.
so it's budgeted for, but not specifically.
Yeah, so there is a little difference between how buildings and grounds has set up their budget versus, for example, the sheriff. So when the sheriff meets with us, and I'm just using him because he's one of the people that purchases large amounts of equipment. He comes in and says, we need one car, one truck, whatever the case may be, usually more than one. And we sit down and we build that into the budget. The maintenance department has routinely been funded to do building maintenance, but not necessarily planned maintenance. So there's not like a replacement of a car generally, or replacement of equipment, but there is money put in there for repairs that happen throughout the year that we may not know about, or different things of that nature.
How big is that budget approximately for buildings and grounds?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
I just know
I'd
this
have
is a
to look.
significant chunk of it, or fairly insignificant?
No, it's fairly insignificant.
Okay, so Tim, do you think this is a priority for your budget in
Well,
this
we
year?
would use it in a lot of different places, mainly in the parks and stuff. And it would come out of our operating budget, which we have money in there. It's really not that much, to tell you the truth.
I just assumed you had other plans for that, but you would consider this then a priority for that amount of money?
Yeah. Because it would be helpful, because, you know, with the land we've acquired at Chi-Town and the things we're doing with parks now, you can't get to part of Chi-Town without something like this. You don't want to bury a truck or something,
I
because you
guess,
can't get there.
I guess with that in mind, even with a little bit of discomfort on it, my preference that it would have been budgeted for, I guess I would need to at this point trust the people who are requesting it, that it is a priority for them, and they've considered these things. So with that in mind and understanding now the budgeting, I guess I would support this.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, and kind of in the old days, I shouldn't say old days, but a lot of times, each department, if they had a need for something like this, would have their own. And actually it works out pretty nice with maintenance in the same building with the drain office. They do share a lot of equipment. And Tony and Tim do get along. And I know Larry, for river days and cleanups and things like that, would be using this somewhat too. So instead of having 3 machines, we just have 1. And I would recommend, of course, it is a new one, and I would certainly recommend a new one because it will probably look very good 10 years from now. So, yep, Mr. Weber.
I had something that I hadn't thought of until Tim really brought up the parks. And if you recall, we did a huge tree planting project out at Chi-Town last fall, a significant amount of money, and I'm hoping that, you know, those trees will provide a great environment for generations to come, but we're gonna need to water them this summer, and that's critical. We get a dry summer, and that is one thing that I hadn't thought about, but to my mind, this would be a great tool to get that job done and take care of those trees that we invested in.
Anybody else? All right, because I'm up here, I'll take the last word, I guess. You know, I absolutely understand the need of this equipment. I understand sometimes things come up that you just can't plan for. But for me, approving our previous budget that was so tight, and I think I said this on Monday, the number that comes to mind, you correct me if I'm wrong, that our wages, salaries and wages is 18 million, is that about right?
19,
Well,
it is 19 million,
So
a little over,
it's
19.2.
over what our budget is, so I mean, in that regard, we are in a way underwater even as we speak, right? That can't continue to balloon. Our budgets, we got a threshold, and our wages are already exceeding. And I only think of this because with school districts, that's where my expertise is. In the same way, 85% of your all expenditures is wages of staff and salary. That leaves 15% to operate buses and equipment and building funds and all this other stuff. You would never notice, you know, think that with a school, but 15% is operating everything else, which is pretty much how we deal with here. Well, with our budget being so tight right now, we have to get into the mode of having the foresight to predict the costs that are coming down. That's just got to become a priority for all department heads and this board. We can't be just approving things, in my opinion, that weren't budgeted for when we are already so tight moving forward. People are going to continue to ask for COLAs in years to come. But we're already at the limit of the threshold. Someday the ESSA money's going to be gone. And a lot of the luxuries we have now will eventually have to go away. It's going to be the same in school districts. A lot of intervention teachers are going to be hired and all sorts of different things. And in 5 years, when the ESSER money is what it's called in education goes away, guess what happens to those staff members? They are gone. You know, so I feel that because this is not in the budget for me, I'm going to be a stickler on this year, and I tried to be last year. If something's not budgeted and there's just not an outstanding need for it, I cannot in good faith vote for it. So that is my opinion. I understand the need and I respect the work they do and that there's going to be good use for it if we get the equipment. Totally understand, but I'm going to stick to my gun on this one. So that said, let's go ahead and have a vote. What is it? Item E. Item E, all in favor of moving this on to a final vote tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, aye. And that will carry on to tomorrow.
I move to authorize MERS to allow Sheriff Deputy Paul Richardson to purchase 18 months of service credit as requested.
Support.
Item F, moved and supported. Questioning, discussions on this item? All right, hearing none. All in favor of item F, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. That will also carry on to tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. And who is the Vice Chairman of Econ and Fiscal Development? Is that
Yes.
will you?
Yes, I will.
Report.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, I move to approve the PA 116 farmland agreement application for Mr. and Mrs. Mark Schnell, parcels 004-14-200-001 and 004-14-200-002 located in Hazelton Township.
Support.
Item A under Econ and Physical Development, moved, supported, questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will carry.
I move to approve PA 116 farmland agreement application for Maple Front Properties parcel 014-34-400-002 in Perry Township.
Support.
Item B moved and supported. Questions? None? All in favor of moving it forward signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will carry. And thank you.
Yep.
And that leads me to ask who is the vice chairman of the Public Safety and Courts Committee? I don't
You're
know.
on that committee.
Well, I'm not sure. That's what I was trying to find.
You know, I'm-
Oh, it's right here. It's Plowman. Commissioner Plowman
Well, all right
again.
then. Why don't we just go with it? And then
Okay, we'll just go with it.
It is right here.
All right. I'll move to approve the purchase of 17 Airpoint red dot sights for the sheriff patrol rifles in an amount not to exceed $6,868.
Second.
Item A moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of moving item A forward onto a final vote tomorrow signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the purchase agreement with Signature Ford of Perry for two 2022 Ford Police Interceptors and one 2022 Ford F-150 Police Responder with the necessary equipment in an amount not to exceed $145,773.50.
Support. Item B moved and supported. Questions, discussion? Yes.
Is we replacing some or adding some?
Replacing some.
Three of them then?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of miles on them or don't you know?
Yeah, they're the oldest ones, and they're gonna be replacing them in the fleet in rotation, and then we'll put them out to auction to sell. And then that money
You
goes
don't
back.
know how many miles it was on?
I don't know off the top of my head, but they were at the age and years where they're the oldest ones, so they're next in the rotation.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's been budgeted.
It's been budgeted. Yeah. It is a good policy and practice to keep the fleet rotating a certain portion of it every couple of years so you have a cycle,
Yep.
Well, and if they're gonna go flying by, they gotta,
as was demonstrated.
yeah.
Yeah. And many times I know that some of these vehicles, 250, 300,000. They get miles quickly.
And they run nonstop. They never turn them off. Yeah.
Sometimes they run all day.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of moving Public Safety and Courts Committee item B on to a final vote tomorrow signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will
Abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In that case, let's move on to the Health and Human Services Committee. Chairman of that committee, Commissioner Garber.
Thank you. I would move that we place the County Veterans Services Program proposal renewal on the August 2022 ballot.
Support.
Item A moved and supported. Questions or discussion?
I would note that Major Reeves is here. if you-
Major Reeves, you are up.
Yes, I would actually like to correct that. I believe the August, Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong, August is the primary.
Yes.
That should probably be the November,
Remember?
because
Probably a good
of the
idea.
general, and we'll get more of the taxpayers
Understood.
on that. So August is actually when it is due, August 16th, I believe, so. That was
Commissioner
my
Garber,
mistake.
I'll amend my motion.
We have an amendment for the motion. Who is our second?
Gary.
Gary, you okay
Yeah,
with that?
yes.
All right, good.
I was-
It's just a committee. It probably doesn't matter much, but guess what?
Sorry, we'll change it for
So
tomorrow.
we'll be November, and that's what we will be voting on. Now, questions or discussion? Thanks for that.
Chairman.
Yes.
What is the actual proposal? Because there was an old copy
Oh, was there?
and it said that they would,
It's just a renewal, isn't it?
It'll be almost
Just a
exactly the
exact
same.
language.
yeah.
The attorney will now draft it once you give permission.
Okay.
And turn it into Caroline.
And Caroline has to approve it.
No,
Well, you don't?
no,
No.
no. I only
I mean,
accept,
what I'm saying is, you make sure it's grammar correct.
no.
No?
Whatever we receive is what goes on the ballot, yes.
Okay. All right.
Eric will
That's why
draft
I have
it.
an attorney.
if you guys
So if the
change it.
language is incorrect, a citizen could say, bring a lawyer and say, this was wrong, it should be invalidated. Is that how that works?
They have to bring a cause of action
Right.
and challenge it in circuit court.
So we'd like to avoid that, so we're gonna have our lawyers draft it up. Understood? Okay, good.
Yep.
Anything else?
So this is not sending it to the ballot then? This
Yes,
is-
it is.
Yeah, this will go on the November ballot as a renewal, am I correct? Just a plain renewal of Veterans Village.
So do we get to see the language before we vote on it?
It'll be exactly the same as there with just due dates.
We can get you the language before tomorrow's final vote.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We'll pull that.
Well, I haven't asked him to do it, and if you guys didn't approve it, we didn't incur the billable hours to do it.
Okay. Is there a way to pull from your records, Caroline, the previous language?
It's
Do
in
we
the
have
packet.
It's in
We
here.
have it in fact. Oh,
Yeah, we have.
that's what I thought
It'll
it
be
was.
exactly the same,
Right.
the updates, no changes.
So it's just gonna be exactly what's in our packet.
And the exact same length of time?
Mhm. Which is, how many years is that one?
Mike?
Yeah,
Scott
go ahead.
somewhere.
Yeah, the reason the change, I'll give a little bit of history if I may. It was written 2018 to 2023. If we don't change it and bring it up to this year's vote, we'll have to have a special election next year, 2023, specifically for the veteran operational. And if approved, that would go into effect 2024, which means theoretically, 2023, we would be without a budget, which is not good. And right now, what I've asked is to change the language to either keep the 5-year spread, so it'll be 2022 out 5 years, or can we change it to a 10-year spread? That's one thing that Arian is looking at, and then everything else as far as the millage amount based upon the Headley Act would be exactly the same as what's in the packet now. The language would be exactly the same. The only thing that's in question right now is the date, and can we extend a 10-year period instead of the 5?
I would recommend that you do an even number. It doesn't matter which number you go with, but an even number.
So it's
you
either
don't
on a
incur-
presidential or gubernatorial, would you say?
Yeah, but the county doesn't have any elections during odd years, and then we would incur that entire expense just for that election. So you'd want to make sure that it's on either presidential or gubernatorial. So whatever number you pick an even year.
Okay, so it sounds like the years are what's up for debate today with us.
What would you like?
With that, the floor is open for debate on years. Or if someone thinks they need less or more.
I don't know, we could go 6.
I
mean,
agree. 10 is, who knows what's going on in 10 years? 6 is hard enough to predict. I'd be in favor of 6.
I think that's kind of standard.
Any other?
I had just one thing kind of with that. So we met earlier today with the Veterans Board, and I want to give you just a few statistics on this. And Mike, if I'm reading this incorrectly from my notes, please correct me. So there were 2,426 interactions with veterans that we helped. 755 of those were veterans that just walked in. 461 veterans received help with transportation, be it to a doctor appointment, cancer treatment, that kind of thing. But my point is this 2,426 people, if we don't have the staff in the facility to help those people, that's what we really have to keep in mind. It isn't, we are providing so much more, I think, than what people realize. It isn't just a handout, it isn't just a food card or to pay your back rent. It is really the interaction with the staff, directing them to other services. They put so much work into what they do up there. So I just wanted to point that out. Does that sound accurate, Mike?
That's correct, and I'm gonna toot my own horn real quick, or the offices were. Mark LeConte is one of the veteran service officers in the office. Since he's came on board, I believe he is at, and if I'm wrong on the number, I apologize, but I believe it's around 32 individuals that he has gotten 100% ratings for. And that breaks down to a huge dollar amount. I can't get that for the commissioners if you'd like. But 32 individuals within our county over the last 2 years went from not having 100% to getting 100%, which then also means now that those individuals, when the good Lord calls them home, their families will be taken care of because they now qualify for a pension. So,
100% disability?
yeah.
Okay. Just want to clarify.
Do we provide services like mental health services, and when a veteran comes in and says, I've had suicidal thoughts? Do we direct them somewhere? How do we deal with that?
We do have several different agencies that we reach out to. With this new facility, one of the things that I've already got into the works is to have a healthcare professional at our new facility. It might be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, to include group therapy because we'll have the conference room to be able to do that. Here in this upstairs now we can't.
Right.
We just don't have the facility for it. But that is something that I've already been talking with Memorial and a couple other individual places that specialize in
That'd be an
healthcare
awesome partnership.
for veterans. So it is in the plans. We just don't do it right now. I shouldn't say we don't do it. We have to farm it out to
Right.
outsource.
We have lots of room now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, good. Hearing none. All in favor of moving this on to final vote tomorrow, with November being the change, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will carry tomorrow.
All right, I would move that we appoint Dr. Lori Burke and Philip Moore to the Shiawassee Health and Wellness Board.
Support.
All right, item B moved by Commissioner Garber, seconded by Commissioner Olshausen. Questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Yes, I didn't see it.
I don't know, I'm on that board, nominating board, and she's she's a physician down in Perry, and she wanted to be on the board. And the other, Moore is, he was on the board in Gratiot County, and he moved back to Shiawassee County, so he put him on, thought he'd be a good fit here.
Out of the pot and into the frying pan. Huh?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, all in favor of moving these folks on to a final appointment tomorrow, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will move on to tomorrow. So we'll move on to Commissioner Chairman Dorder.
Thank you.
Special report.
Thank you. I don't have much that you all don't know. It's been pretty quiet. I just want to say I'm pretty glad to put our negotiations with our unions behind us. I think they went smoothly. I think everyone is reasonably happy on both sides of the table, so that's terrific. As Commissioner Garber mentioned, we were just before this meeting over at the Veterans meeting, and I gave them what update I had on the building, and Dr. Waugh, correct me if I'm misstating any of this. We've got our engineers looking at it. The first thing we had to do was find out what's there before we can find out what we're going to change. So they're laying out the floor plan, looking at the mechanicals, and so on, the possibility of putting a covered area for veteran drop-off. We went over there today and it's all ice and snow on the sidewalk and they're busy. Yeah, that wasn't real good. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again. The building is being terrific. Talking about, I left him with a question about whether there's showers in the bathrooms there, whether they want to keep showers or not, and we can leave that up to them. But I gotta say, as a group, the veterans are so mindful of money they spend and so on. They're got to be about the only people in the county who are more tight-fisted than I am. They're just a wonderful group to look
That's
at.
extraordinary.
Yes, it is. It's hard to imagine because I'll tell you one thing. I certainly do not worry about that group of people wasting money. They are careful and they discuss every dollar, and they're really a good group of people. So I am so pleased we're going to give them a better facility. I couldn't be more pleased about what's going on with that. So that's all I have today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Boggs.
Just one thing to note about the Veterans Facility, because it's been so long since anything has been done over there, all the maps that we had to be recreated in the computer before we could actually go through with changing anything. So that was one of the things that took a little bit of time for them to get started, and now they're making the additions, changes, updating, because we didn't have digital schematics of any of that, because nothing's been done over there in such a long period of time. Just a couple of items. So we have passed the referendum period on the bonding, which means that we are able to move on to the next step. I've met with bond counsel and our financial advisors, and we have requested our meeting with Treasury, which is the next step. And so we will meet with Treasury to go over it. Treasury will then render an opinion about our ability to bond and whether we should, and whether they're giving us their permission. And then after that, it will come back to the board for final review and approval before it goes on to anything further. it will depend how quickly Treasury moves before, when we have our meeting. It could be as much as a month out, but hopefully it will be sooner. As soon as we got the paperwork, we immediately sent it back to them requesting our appointment, which takes a little bit of time because they have to do their preliminary due diligence, and then we do as well. And we received our bond rating back. We have an A+ bond rating, which is pretty good considering we haven't had a bond rating done in 10 years. They noted, the main thing that they noted was our MERS debt and obligations, which it was a major obstacle that we owe. And so that was the big thing that we discussed in our call with Standard & Poor's. And we will be needing to do a couple of additional things moving forward, including developing a 5-year budget and forecasting plan that Tracy and myself have begun discussing, but we will be taking care of that post-audit, post-meeting with Treasury, not right at this time. And then that leads us to the last thing, which is at the end of April, auditors will be here and present to start our audit work. So.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Holzhauer.
Yeah, didn't we get a grant too?
Yes, we
You
did
wanna
get a
mention
grant. So Mike Reeves and myself applied for a grant that was available and got $90,000 from the state of Michigan for work on the Veterans Building. So with what the commissioners have already marked and contributed, and it's a non-matching grant, so we have $20,000 towards that project already, with only $20,000 of it being from the county.
Very good. Anyone else? All right. In that case, we'll move into our second public comments. Mr. Matthew Shepard on Perry, Michigan. You have the floor.
I caught a little bit of former Commissioner Dan McMaster's briefing to you folks on the county jail garden. I'm just wondering, is it going to continue to be a jail garden where they would supply food to the jail, or just be donated to the local area food banks? And if this created position of the former commissioner was done so under Michigan State grant, is he going to be a full-time, part-time employee of this county, and then also be included in the MERS Cadillac retirement program? I've had a few individuals I've talked with ask me how long we're going to keep the MERS Cadillac program for people that spend eons of time in the county government, and when the bond is going to be approved like you're discussing there, if that's included with the MERS or just what? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address this committee at this time? All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.